hey, it's fun. If you're 555, then I'm 666. Hey! Hey!
Okay, I've tried something like this before, which is a comprehensive discography band review thing. I did it with Metallica. Now, when you've got that many albums, you can't fit it into an hour, or an hour and a half, or even maybe 2 hours. Certain albums I have way more to say on with certain bands than I do others. Big change this time, I am going to do the same thing with Slipknot. I learned a lot from doing the Metallica one. So, Slipknot right now has 6 studio albums that we're going to talk about. I'm only doing them installments of 2 albums each. Now, the second installment and third installment, I'm going to have a lot less to say. They will be shorter. Part of me wants to combine all 4 of them into one, but we'll see. That's how much less I have to say about those albums, which is some foreshadowing. Anyway, now if you want to argue that there's 7 albums because of Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, I'm going to reference that right now and why I'm not really going to talk about it that much. It's because Slipknot considers it a demo. And it makes sense as to why they would. Not only because it's not this major label, like studio album, quality isn't really the same, also different vocalist, situation going on. A fraction of those songs, maybe a third of them, got reworked, definitely re-recorded, and put on other albums such as the self-titled and Iowa. Some of those songs never saw the light of day again. Some of the ideas from those songs were just borrowed for other songs. Some of them, have the same names. We're going to reference them only if they are on other albums, like self-titled and Iowa and such. So, Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, that happened, demo, album, cool. But now let's get into it, and let's start with the self-titled album by Slipknot. So, first thing I want to say. Well, let's start at the start. I think normally, I would like to go and talk about tracks in sections and not do it in chronological order, because I find some bands, certain albums have this song is kind of like one of these songs. They have a couple ballads on here. They have a couple of these. And I can find a way to categorize them. Most of this first album, I am going to go in chronological order with, but it'll change up a little bit. They'll be in sections. But I do want to start at the start. Let's start with the intro track. So, it's just a bunch of numbers. 742617000027. That is the title of the intro track. It's really just a repetitious line of the whole thing I think is sick. And apparently they had taken this from a Charles Manson documentary of some nature, and then I think Sid remixed it and did some stuff with it, obviously, and I don't know who else had a part in that, but anyway, the band did some stuff to it and really played with that one line, and I feel like it's very appropriate. Now, this album came out in 1999. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I was... How old was I in 1999? 13. Now, probably 99 or 2000, I actually received this album from a friend. This is one of the 3 albums into my journey into metal. So it wasn't a very soft transition from the garbage I was listening to before, which was mostly mainstream rap and hip-hop at the time, such as Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Puff Daddy, even Will Smith. So, I think my friend gave me the Slipknot and gave me Metallica's Black Album, and then I think a Pantera album or 2 and White Zombie. There was a couple that happened at once. And then he burned these CDs for me in quick succession, and then I got into some grunge and some other stuff. Neither here nor there. That's a whole other video. But I I've talked about this before in a different album review, talking about danger and things that seem dangerous and music being dangerous at the time, or a musical artist. And I feel like at this time, and obviously with where I was in my youth and maturity, I felt that this intro sets a tone for the album as something dangerous, as something not the norm, not conventional, made it somewhat unpredictable. I didn't know what the heck was going to happen next. Even if you thought, that's the thing, you could have something be really like acoustic and pretty and nice, and then like slam a breakdown in your face, you know, like steel toe boots to the back of your head into a pile of broken glass or something. That can happen. There's a huge contrast there, right? Like this thing sets you up and then bam, and then it takes it away. But the thing is, this was just like a very appropriate intro where also I just didn't know what I was going to find. Like it seemed like it was pointing at, in all directions at once, with just this very quick, short, I mean it's like under a minute long, I believe. The whole thing I think is sick, the whole thing I think is sick, the whole thing I think is sick, the whole thing I think is sick. Like playing around with, again, the speed of it, the pitch, and having all this other stuff in the background, non-conventional song structure, non-conventional instruments and sounds going on there. Anyway, very quick snippet, sets a certain tone. I believe it does it very well. It goes right into sick. Now, first of all, I'm going to get this out of the way before really talking about the song. It's in parentheses and it's only S-I-C. Now, at the time, when I was about 13, I would have been about 14, I think, when I got the album from my friend. Yeah, 14. Anyway, at the time, I didn't know any better. I mean, this is a thing that rappers did all the time, too. Spelled words wrong. Think of, like, DMX and the Rough Riders, R-U-F-F, right? Spell words wrong just because they can, and just like, oh, this was just like, that's sick. Like, that's, I don't even think that was a term or an idiom or anything that I used at the time. It wasn't really in popular usage in that context yet. But just being like sick, like, okay, like someone could spell it S-I-K, like corn, think of corn. I mean, K-O-R-N. It obviously was in different types of musical genres and stuff as well. So I thought that's all it was, until much later in university when I realized, oh, wait a second here, like this means something. And it wasn't because of university or anything, it was just in that time frame of my life. Certain magazines I was reading I noticed it more and more, that they would have in parentheses sick after a paragraph or a sentence when there's something being quoted. So this has meaning. It's like, it's not just like for stylistic, aesthetic purposes to have it in parentheses and lowercase and just sick without the K. It is inserted after a quoted word or passage that indicates that the quoted matter has been transcribed exactly, complete with erroneous / incorrect content. That's me paraphrasing. A lot of that was a direct quote from like a dictionary resource, but then I paraphrased some of it. So that's why that is always after a paragraph. It's being like, hey, everything that came before this, I mean, I think if you're interviewing someone and then you're transcribing the interview and that person used horrible, horrible grammar, but for some reason you didn't edit it to clean it up, or they said something that wasn't true, or it was a mistake, either grammatically or factually or whatever, and you left it in there the way that it was, you would put that in there so everyone knows, yo, we know that there's a problem here, but we're leaving it in there, and we are aware of the issue. This is us transcribing it exactly as the person said it. So, I think that has some added weight to this song in a way, but with things on this record, a lot of things, it's a little bit cryptic. And so if I knew that at the time, I probably would have thought about it a little more. At the same time, the song just fucking rips. It's just immediately after that intro, it's just the perfect segue, the perfect song. I think that even the first lyrics that are presented here, again, set a tone for the whole album, but not just the album. I think it really sets the theme of the band itself. Enemy, show me what you want to be. I can handle anything, even if I can't handle you. Okay? So, first of all, we're going to talk about nu metal influence and stuff because this has some cadence to it that would kind of put it into that sphere. But we'll talk about that in a bit. The thing is, lyrically, Enemy, show me what you want to be. I can't say want to be. Enemy, show me what you want to be. I can handle anything, even if I can't handle you. It's really hard to not say it the way that Corey, expresses it because it's so ingrained in my head. Anyway, to me, like I said, this is the theme of the album. This is the theme of the band. This is like a mission statement. This is like, well, not quite a mission statement because it's not so clear as like, this is what we believe. But I mean, sometimes that enemy is even the self. Basically how I would deconstruct this is that this is a expression of strength, an expression of rebellion, an expression that acknowledges that there is a negative force being imposed upon you, and you having an attitude that is railing against that and saying, I prevail. And not humbly, right? Aggressively. Aggressively, I will prevail. And I feel like that's just incredibly important to Slipknot's beginnings and just the statement coming right out of the gate. I guess the first statement being the intro, being like the whole thing I think is sick, makes sense for the whole album as well, but this being the first song that you hear with, Corey's vocals on there and the actual lyrics, not just like random spatterings of words, because I think it says here comes the pain in the background. It probably was Clown or something in the studio, just a little excerpt before these lyrics. So, yeah. It's just an incredible song. One of the hardest songs on the album, probably in my opinion, obviously. Everything I say is in my opinion. Probably the second hardest song on the album, but it just rips. Yeah. Like I said, I feel like it foreshadows the whole album with who the opposition. I mean, it doesn't say who the opposition is, but there is an opposition. And almost every song is in opposition to something or someone, or that someone in some cases is the self. So, despite that cadence, it doesn't really have the nu metal feel, which I'm going to talk about soon. And again, just the ending of just like Corey screaming sick over and over again, the repetition there, it kind of like, it's funny because it has parentheses, and I feel like those parentheses really kind of start in the intro, and just that it just wraps. I mean, they go together so well. Obviously, with just that word being repeated, and the whole thing I think is sick, and then just sick, being screamed at the end. This is aggression, hatred, right out of the gate. But again, in a way that is powerful and has strength to it. The next song is Eyeless. This is the hardest song on the album to me. Obviously, again, opinion. Eyeless, it kind of crosses some boundaries into other categories we're going to get into, which is, it gets a little deep, dark, but doesn't have the same instrumentation or feel as some of these slower, deep, dark songs we're going to talk about. But it is definitely, I think it's one of Slipknot's heaviest songs, period. And the freaking breakdown on this thing, and then going halftime later, before that was really a fashionable thing to do, I feel. And I'm not saying that they influenced that, because I feel like breakdowns are going halftime, going into like crabcore and metalcore and, deathcore and stuff, that came like a decade or more later, I feel, after this. And I don't really think there's this huge link there, but it just happens to be the first time that I heard it as a Ute. So, yeah, it's just one of the heaviest songs. in my opinion, that just doesn't let up. And I can't imagine, like, when I hear it and I think of Corey screaming it. I mean, like, full disclosure, I was a vocalist for metal bands, no cleans, like, just screaming. And when I think of screaming this, like, I can't do it properly. I can't scream this from my diaphragm. To get the same type of scream he did, I can't imagine he did not do damage to himself. But that, like, the type of scream it is adds to the heaviness of this so much. It is so raw, and just, it's one of my favorite tracks. I'm not going to talk about it lyrically. I definitely have some relation to it lyrically, but I'm not going to get into it with this song. Now, I've got one more song to talk about here in this little grouping, which I didn't give you the name of yet, and I'm very aware of. It is Diluted. So, Diluted is also, in here. I don't really have a lot to say about it, but I'm just putting it in here. Like, I don't necessarily want to go track by track by track by track by track, but just kind of mention some things. Diluted is in this little bubble of 3 songs, which I call Strong Pain, which is this really strong, aggressive, hammer smashing you in the face expression of pain, which is going to be something we return to over and over and over again with this album, is talking about pain. Pain demands to be felt. I'll unpack that more later. But these songs really, to me, and maybe that's also why, like, Sick and Eyeless are my favorite songs on the album, are because they are brutally expressing pain. There is no question of what they're expressing, I feel. And in their expression of pain, they are also spewing hatred and anger as a part of it. I also express most of my pain through anger. It's not a very healthy thing to do. I've been working on it. I recognize it. Again, that's a conversation for another time. But that song also fits into this little section. Now, again, because I'm going in kind of chronological order, we've got Wait and Bleed. This is going to kind of be talking about anthems. I guess if I had like an anthem section, this would be it, but it's going to be a little different from what we talk about later with Iowa. So Wait and Bleed I've got a very complex relationship with, because it seems to be like a self-harm anthem in a way. Again, very cryptic, lyrics are very debatable. There's like definitely some other imagery and stuff going on here that could be more sacrificial and more evil, or some type of other darker entity worship type stuff. However, I mean, taking at face value just certain sections of it, and obviously I would never want to do that, but I'm doing that, or recognizing that's a thing, because other people tend to do that a lot too. And I think, well, I mean, as a human, I do it. I definitely, whatever I'm hearing first, I mean, if you've ever thought about taking a lyric, not even just the wrong way, but mishearing a lyric, and that's what you think of all the time, it's really hard to disassociate your understandings or feelings of that song. Not disassociate, but to unassociate, I guess, that from the actual meaning. If you find out, like, oh wait, I've been listening to the song all wrong, I misheard the lyrics or understand it differently now. Like, sometimes there can be a natural evolution to having different feelings about a song as time goes on, but what I'm talking about is really being like, oh, I made a mistake. Like, that's not what the song says, or whatever it does. That's not what happens in the song. So, one thing that I really feel it's a self-harm anthem, and again, I have a complex relationship with the song because I self-harmed a lot during this period. And it was not like I just ran over to my CD player and put the song on while I self-harmed. However, I didn't have, at this time, very much music that would fit the occasion. And I listened to music a lot. And I did listen to music when I self-harmed, and this was one of the albums that was on sometimes. And it's not like my brand of self-harm took a lot of time, so, I mean, this song happened to be on enough that I associated with that. It's not a place that I've been in for a long time, so I have that weird association with it. The part of this, I said it's a complex relationship with the song, because I feel like this is the swan song on the album. I feel like This is the single. This is also the most, weirdly and oddly enough, the most radio-worthy or palatable. What's another word I can use to fit in here? There is another, accessible. I feel like it's the most accessible song on the album, and a lot of edgy people at the time would say that, yeah, I listen to Slipknot, and this would be the only song that they knew. And I find even still to this day with like adults, they'll run to this song. I don't know. I'm more of like an artist guy, not a. I just like the single and that's it. There's a few different artists that I'm like, yeah, I just kind of like that one single. There's one-hit wonders, obviously. That's a thing that exists. But it's really hard to apply that to Slipknot. Because, I mean, anyway. Yeah, so that's kind of the complex relationship with the song. It's a great song. It's also, its placement on here, I'm going to go into more later when we talk about Iowa, but its placing in the track list, I feel was very purposeful, because it's the fourth track on here, the third like real song, and it is the first time we get clean singing. And it's, you know, other than the lyrical content being almost an anthem for self-harm in a way, again, depends on how you want to interpret things, but this is a common thing. It also just carries a certain anthemic quality in the way that Corey Taylor sings. Another song off this album that does that is Surfacing. However, this is way more lyrically based and in a way more good, like positive way. Like Wait and Bleed is the song on here out of all the songs that I probably would skip. Part of it is just my association with it, and part of it is just it's structured more, I feel like, for radio, which is weird to say, but also true in my opinion. So Surfacing is really a reminder what this whole album is about, and I feel, or what Slipknot is about. And I feel like it doesn't carry musically an anthemic quality in the same way that Wait and Bleed does, or a lot of songs off Iowa, which we'll talk about later. We're going to have a whole anthem section there that's much bigger than this. But it is, again, what this band is about being the outsider, the other. It's, you know, being a reject, you know, so it reminds us there, but again, in a rebellious manner, in an aggressive manner, this expression of, I know who I am, and screw you. I don't know why I'm avoiding swearing right now. It's really weird. And maybe just because I've been so overloaded with profanity by listening to these albums again, as I did today, and for some reason, maybe it's also because I just came from work, and so I'm just like steering away from profanity, which is silly when talking about Slipknot, but here I am. Anyway, yeah, it is an affront to the enemy, which we talked about earlier, and an acknowledgement of who you are. And there's strength in acknowledging who you are, realizing, accepting, and I mean, and part of it is changing who you are. That's a whole other part of the strength. But I mean, you can't do that without any acceptance. And I mean, growth for the right purposes. And so anyway, realizing who you are, not just to yourself, but to the world, there's power in that. And again, Surfacing is a song that really is, in some ways, kind of goes back to that strong pain kind of group of songs, I feel. And what I believe Slipknot, in some ways, does absolutely best. Okay, so now I want to talk about that nu metal label a little bit. So, they definitely were in that genre. They were put in there for a reason. I feel like that genre of music is so wildly diverse. I mean, Slipknot, without a handful of songs here, it just, I don't know. Slipknot is Slipknot. I feel like they defy genre, other than being under the genre of metal. I feel like they defy it. I mean, there's no question that they're a metal band. But they really defy genre in so many ways. And they are their own brand. However, this first album specifically carries a lot of songs that put them under this moniker of nu metal, and I understand why. So, firstly, you know, there's, I'm just going to list some songs. Only One And I like all these songs. And by the way, new metal is such like a, I mean, and then we're talking about NU with the umlaut over the U, metal. It's such a dirty word, I feel. And I like, I mean, Linkin Park was new metal. Deftones, for some reason, got lumped into new metal, and they're a genre-defining band way more than Slipknot is. I feel like they are, I don't know how to put their own brand, and I can't even put them under the moniker of metal, or under that umbrella. And there's a whole bunch of other bands that got, I mean, Korn got put in there, Limp Bizkit, and there's a lot of reasons. One common thing is a rapping cadence. Instead of just calling it rap rock, which is kind of a different thing, when we've got heavier music and we've got a cadence that is akin to what we familiarize with rapping style, vocal expression, we end up putting that under new metal a lot of the time. That's not the only thing. There's definitely certain types of instrumentation that would help somebody and assist them in carrying that kind of cadence. And I feel like some of that happens on this album, Slipknot. So Only One, that song, I freaking love that song. I'm just letting you know that new metal isn't a dirty word to me. No Life as well. Liberate, Me Inside, Spit It Out. So I'm not going to say a lot about some of these. A lot of the verses are more in the rapping cadence, and the choruses sometimes have cleans or whatever, and there's like bridges, and not all of them are super conventional song structures, but a lot of these are. So Me Inside, for instance, new metal cadence, if I want to call it that, rapping cadence in the verses, soaring vocals in the chorus, really heavy grooves in that song, in behind the chorus there, and then it gets heavy, like really heavy towards the end, and I love that song, Me Inside. And these other songs that I've already mentioned are following that kind of same template for the most part. Only One definitely gets out of that a little bit. Really, out of all these, I want to talk about anthems. Like a new metal anthem that is on the heaviest end of the spectrum of new metal is Spit It Out. But it is, I think, the most new metal song that Slipknot has ever done. It's fun. Now, I mentioned that Wait and Bleed is a song that I skip. Well, Spit It Out, I skip probably equally. It doesn't carry any emotional weight or baggage for me, but just the sound of it, I'm like, okay, this is fun for Slipknot. This is like a fun song. It's probably my least favorite song on this album, because I feel like they strayed from everything else on the album with that. I mean, there's aggression and there's frustration and anger and hatred and all those things, and a very rebellious attitude, but whereas the other songs were a very calculated rebellion of this is who I am, and just by being myself I'm automatically rebelling, this is more of like a teen angst like rebellion, which is not very mature or well thought out and very reactionary and not super logical or rational or again, it's just immature. So whereas all the rest of the stuff is, I feel, more formulated and does it better and more formal and more mature, calculated. So that's a little package of the new, which is like almost half the track listing here. Again, Spit It Out, Me Inside, No Life, Only One, Liberate as well, which I definitely I want to get back to. But before we do that, Deep Dark. Deep Dark is what I'm calling this other section of songs here: Prosthetics, Tattered and Torn, and Scissors. So, and we generally, depending on which version of the album you have, we end off on Scissors, and that's it. So, Tattered and Torn is one of those songs that appeared on Make, Feed, Kill, Repeat. It's one of my favorite songs on this album because it is incredibly powerful. It is a little left of center of some of the other ones with its musicality, but in such a way that I'm like, this is scary. Like this is adding that dangerous element that music, I feel, doesn't have as much anymore, but just because we're oversaturated with music and so many things have already been done, and also I'm a jaded old man. But anyway, let's start with Prosthetics. Desperate, dark, violent, yet somehow catchy. This also has that dangerous quality to it. These songs are all slower. I mean, Tattered and Torn is probably the fastest out of them in its tempo. But these are slower songs that build a little more. They're still heavy, but in a much different way. But they have this darker quality to them that is kind of unrelenting because it's not necessarily rooted in anger in the same way these other ones are very upfront about. These are more rooted in pain, and they still express in an aggressive way because it's Slipknot, and for the most part, that's 90% of their catalog. And they tell certain stories that maybe not so easily, may not be so easily to relate to. That's not a sentence. But yeah, Prosthetics, again, is this great expression of desperation and this darkness, which has lyrical violence, not in like a Cannibal Corpse way, but it's there. And yet there's some catchy parts in it, which is just, I feel, masterful. It's incredible that they could pull that off. Scissors. No, let's go to Tattered and Torn. The way that I wrote this out, my notes. Again, it's a song that I'm just like, man, this is nuts. This is off the wall. I have no idea what's going on. If this came right after the intro, it would have made sense too, because it would just throw you for the biggest loop ever. I mean, their track listing is perfect in here, other than maybe let's just get rid of Spit It Out. But anyway, it is so just, it really ties to the intro so much with just being, how do I put it, chaotic. You've got this like siren kind of esque sound in the background. It's almost incessant. And again, this rawness to it, and this like storytelling type of song, and it's not telling a good story. I don't know how to explain it, man. It is so hard to explain. But everything on here is makes the listener, I guess, feel out of place, not happy, it carries a certain weight that is so hard to describe, which is why it's amazing. I'm like replaying it in my head right now. I'm getting lost. Sorry, but it carries this darkness to it, this weird, twisted, scary, dangerous feel that does not make me feel good, but not in a way that I can't listen to it. It's far enough away from me that it doesn't bring me to it's like a horror movie, put it that way. And generally a horror movie won't be something that I relate to such a degree that I can't handle it because it's so reflective of some inner trauma or something like that, generally with any horror movie that I've watched. But anyway, it doesn't quite take me down into the depths of my soul in such a rotten way that makes me legitimately want to stay away from it, but it is creepy, it sounds scary, and it's wonderful, and it's heavy as hell. Incredibly powerful anxiety. Like, I'm throwing all these words out that suit it, but it's really hard to unpack. Scissors, the last one out of this like deep, dark little section of the album, and the last track on most of the album releases. So again, it's creepy, it's strong building, it has catchy parts, and it is sad. It's again has some slower parts too, and then it builds to the end with this intense spastic drumming and Corey just screaming in desperation, and it's a real track. It's very, again, the track listing on here is immaculate. I feel like it bookends the album. We have the beginning, which is the whole thing I think is sick and whatever going on, and this is like so overwhelming that it can't be focused. Like, I feel like there's no repeat performance of that vocal take. Like, I can't imagine how you could do that again. It is, again, incredibly powerful in how overwhelming it feels, and that's the thing about this album, is that I feel like... That's so stupid to say. I was going to say, I feel like any listener that is open-minded, but then you've got to define that and whatever else, who sat down with this album as a whole, will come out feeling what they're supposed to feel, which is sick and not healthy and dark and angry and sad, and like, those things can be powerful tools and positive things, depending on how you're processing it and directing your anger and or sadness and whatever else. But yeah, the way Scissors ends just, again, is so raw, which I've said before a couple times here, with Eyeless, with Tattered and Torn, with just these incredibly heavy expressions of pain and anger and things that I don't have names for, and that's also probably why sometimes there's no specific words being attached to these expressions that are being screamed. I said I wanted to get back to Liberate, and I do want to get back to Surfacing a tad as well. Because to wrap up this album, Liberate has some lyrics here that to me stand out on the whole album, which is, I am not ashamed, what is vital isn't always humane. One of my favorite lyrics on the album, and again, I believe that it does a great justice for the album. Again, I'm pairing it up with Surfacing in its content, because we're talking about an anthem for rejects and outsiders and being the other and acknowledging who you are, and finding strength in that. And that, I believe that's here. I am not ashamed, implying of whatever your actions are sometimes, because what is vital isn't always humane. And this album is a scraping and scratching and fighting to survive, is how I feel. In this context of being outside of society in general, especially in the context of the time. Being outside of what was accepted, being on the outside, period. And there is a lot of work that you are confronted with as a person who does not fit, who obviously does not fit. I think that with anybody, there's a lot of work that can be done to really figure yourself out, even if you're, live in the suburbs and everything's hunky-dory and you fit into this puzzle so easily, and then one day you realize, oh crap, I've got some stuff wrong with me. Yes, I understand that everyone has issues, but I feel like, especially at a younger age and whatever else, and you are being confronted directly in your face that you are not a part of whatever else is going on over here that is what you should be a part of. You are not like the rest of them, you are the other. I feel like that's what this album is. This is an expression of that in one of the most brutal ways you can express it. And again, through anger, expressing the pain of somehow, the ways that you are, the ways that it has become known unto you sometimes in being the other is incredibly hurtful, right? Like, and not accepting and all these other things that there's so freaking much here. And some of these things are just so specific. There's some cryptic lyrics. There's things that I can't necessarily decode. I'm not Corey Taylor. I don't know everything that he went through, and other contributors to the lyrics, which I'm sure Clown did some as well, and others. But I relate to that feeling for a lot of reasons. And again, Surfacing and Liberate specifically, just that line from Liberate, really, to me, just tell you what Slipknot is all about. The term maggots is a term of endearment for fans, right? Philosophically in a lot of different ways, but one of them is the fact that if you feel like you are nothing, but we are nothing there's strength in numbers in being nothing to someone else, and realizing that we have self-worth, in that acceptance and that understanding, and being able to counteract that with finding strength in the self. Pain demands to be felt. I feel like this is one of the best examples I could ever give somebody of that phrase. This album, again with the exception of Spit It Out, this album demands to be felt. There's no I can't imagine someone being bored listening to this album, but again, there's everyone different strokes for different folks. It's not the fact that it has to be interesting to them, it's the fact that I'm not saying that everyone would like it. I'm saying I don't know how you are confronted with art like this and you're unmoved. I feel that if you sat with this album, it's an atrocious feeling, and depending on who you are, you can interpret that in a positive way. But I mean, like, it's, again, not a healthy place to be, and I feel like that is expressed just so powerfully that I can't think of another album right now that would express it better. Now our talk about Iowa is going to be a little quicker, and we'll wrap this up after, and that'll be it for today. And then hopefully I get my act together. I can just do the other two segments next week and the other two segments the week after that. But anyway, Iowa. Okay. Again, starting at the intro, and then kind of going around in groups a little bit. I feel it's going to be hard to make this cohesive. It's all over the place. The beginning of this album, I wish in some ways that this intro was on. I wish the intros were reversed from the self-titled and Iowa, because obviously they couldn't be because of the timeline, and I'm assuming, that's... Anyway, we're not talking about time travel right now. Album was released in 2001, 2 years after the self-titled was released. 515, which is the area code for Iowa, is what the title of the intro is. Again, it's pretty quick. It's got some textured bits that I'm assuming Sid and others laid down. But speaking of Sid, it is him doing the vocals on this, screaming the word death over and over and over again in anguish and sorrow and pain. That word comes up a lot, just pain, just that word pain, over his grandfather's death. It passed away before he even got a chance to say goodbye. And he entered the studio and just went to the vocal booth, and just that's what came out. I'm sure more came out than this, and they edited it. But that is Sid, and I feel like that powerful raw expression would have fit better onto the self-titled if that was available, if that was something that happened in the timeline. I'm just saying that when you look at them back to back, it would be better if they were switched, which wasn't really a possibility. But I'm saying that because then we go into, right after this intense raw expression of pain, again almost incoherent at times, it's so overwhelming. Then we go into People Equal Shit, which out of all the songs on this album is one of my least favorite. Both anthems on here, I guess, are like my least favorite songs on the album, but they're still great songs, they're still good songs. So saying that it's my least favorite is just because you have to have a least favorite sometimes, and then favorites and everything in between. It's not... Okay, this is an expression of confidence It is much different than the expression before of like strength and inner worth and whatever else. This is an expression that's like, we defeated the sophomore slump. There is none of that here. No sophomore slump. We are here. Here to stay is the expression I believe they were trying to get across here. It's not, to me, I mean, when they come right out of the gate with this just barn burner of a song. And what I find with a lot of their anthems that are meant to be anthems, not like Liberty, not like Surfacing, but anthem like Spit It Out, or here, People Equal Shit, and the Herotic Anthem, that they are a little dumbed down. Lyrically, that's what I think a lot of people would have to do for anthems, but especially just with the content, the lyrical content, I feel like it is dumbed down to a degree that's just so much more palatable to a certain audience, a certain group, and that, just the way that musically, too, they have to fit their vocal expression in, it just makes sense to a degree, too. Anyway, so, again, I would say it's fun, like Spit It Out is fun. However, we've kind of lost a lot of the nu metal flavor. So, a lot of this album is kind of missing that, or it's getting further away from it. It's not as extreme or as obvious. There are some songs on here which we'll talk about in a bit, but again, People Equal Shit is just like coming out of the gate where I felt like if it was, again, the other intro where it's like, whole thing I think is sick, it would have just made a lot of sense. So I don't feel like this track listing is as perfect as the other one, because yes, you want this song to be your first song. I completely get it. However, the intro probably should have been placed somewhere else in some other format or capacity, because it is just such a jarring difference to me in expressing raw pain and then a fun track about how people equal shit. And again, still with the message that we're talking about of like people are no good, and that's probably us included, anyway, the Herotic Anthem, I think, has even less substance. It just seems like fun. So that's my least favorite song on here. It's just like, hey, it's fun. If you're 555, then I'm 666. Hey! Cool. It just seems like a fun song, and it is very anthemic. And again, with a lot of these songs, the nu metal ones and the more anthemic ones, they are very... which rightfully so. I mean, they have to be more traditional in their song structure as well, for the most part. Yeah. So, there's two different kind of anthems, in a way, here. I kind of alluded to that last time, too, where I felt like the anthem was like, the single is the anthem, the single, but then there's like a conceptual anthem, in a way. And here we've got like a conceptual in a good way on the other one with Liberate and Surfacing. And here it's like the Herotic Anthem, people equal shit, hey, it's fun. But then we've got this more traditional song structure, yet more radio friendly, with songs like My Plague, Left Behind, and The Shape. I like all those songs a lot. I definitely listen to them, I don't skip them, I enjoy them. But they're kind of like the weight and bleeds of this album. So that got beefed up. The danger, the scary, the creepy, the rawness of pain, that is being left behind a little bit and making room for, again, we still have a lot of anger, a lot of aggression. We've got way more cleans this time, though, and just the way that they structured those cleans and the way they structured the songs, especially within those three I just listed, My Plague, Left Behind, and The Shape, it feels like, oh, this is a radio song. That's what it feels like. And they're still good songs. I still enjoy them, and they still have substance, so it's not necessarily lacking in that. I mean, some more than others. The Shape is kind of debatable sometimes. But yeah. Then we've got our little group of nu metal songs, which I would say are I Am Hated, Metabolic, New Abortion. They aren't like last time. I don't know. They're not anthemic in the way that I've been talking about. but yeah, I don't really have much to say about them. Again, they're still good songs. They're not as nu metal-y, like in their vocal cadence or the especially the instrumentation behind them is not so obvious as the nu metal style songs that were on the self-titled. Now to get into what I really want to talk about, I mean, good things. Nu metal. I mean, Slipknot shedding their skin. That, you know, the nu metal skin is a good thing here. It's so weird, man. Looking back, like, just how dark Iowa is in comparison to so many other things that are popular or whatever. It's just weird to be like, oh, these are radio songs. I just had to, like, say that again. Anyway, but going to stuff that I like most, the strong pain or hard pain kind of grouping here is a lot. I feel like it's a lot less, but I guess only by one song. But Disaster Piece and Everything Ends. I feel like they kind of tried to structure the track listing the same as last time. I already said why it kind of didn't work. The last time it was like intro, super hard song, and then we got clean vocals on Wait and Bleed. And this time it was like intro, and then what did we have? We had People Equal Shit. So it was like intro, hard song, and then Disaster Piece came next, I think, or was it the second? Oh man, I don't remember now. I don't remember. Well, I'm an idiot. So I'm just overwhelmed by my own research and how much I did and how much I didn't do. Full disclosure, always transparency. Anyway, Disaster Piece and Everything Ends. I feel like those are those key highlights, expressions of pain done aggressively. They are very strong songs, not just like it's a strong song like in the musicality of it and the songwriting of the quality. I mean, yes, but they're also strong in their content. Again, the delivery and everything. It has that same attitude from the self-titled of this is who I am and this is why I'm not accepting you and why I'm not accepting your, way of life or your fake structure that you want to impose on me. So those are my favorite songs on here. Again, Disaster Piece, which, yeah, the lyrics right out of the gate for that one are strong. Incredibly, I mean, there's some beautiful poetry on this album. I feel like the songwriting got better on this album in many ways because I feel like Slipknot is doing what they want to do. This first album I would never call immature other than Spit It Out. I feel like it was just raw emotion that was filtered and processed with skill and expressed that way, but it has less formal structure. This album has more formal structure, and a lot of the songs on it are trying to do specific things, I feel, whereas the other one was like, this is a collection of we just need to get this out. This is the cathartic process. Iowa still very much is that, but there generally is more structure. However, then we've got our deep dark section, which again, the last track is a part of that, which is Iowa. And we got Gently as well, which I believe was actually reconstructed and taken from the Mate Feed Kill Repeat demo, but I could be wrong. But slow, creepy, building, and has a certain amount of desperation to it again. I believe, again, these tell a story that is maybe more difficult to relate to in its literal sense. However, I feel like, yeah, there's something powerful going on there, and it also demands to be felt. This certain type of desperation and pain, but expressed in this, again, this darker, slower vibe that Slipknot is able to bring is something that I really enjoy about them. It is the thing that I think they do second best to pain demanding to be felt. Yeah, they do this just as well as like expressing pain in the most brutal way possible. Iowa is like a 14 minutes, like a 14-minute just trip of slow building, and then just it doesn't build slow like so gradually. It's like slow, and then kind of like that after a while. But I mean, when you've got minutes upon minutes of this building, like it still just hits you right in the face. It's not like it comes out of nowhere, but yeah. Again, it has a lot of those attributes that I mentioned on like Scissors. It's something else. Sorry, I'm like petering out here, and also this is why I want to just do 2 albums at a time, right? It's really overwhelming. So, and I can't see my notes here. What does this say? I can't even. Oh, that's what it says. Never mind. I already talked about that. Anyway, yeah, Iowa. I have way less to say about Iowa. I believe it fits. Like, if there were 3 albums that kind of made sense to go together, I would have tried to do that. Self-titled and Iowa seem to fit, but we definitely see this evolution happening in Iowa. It is. No, it's not a more diverse record. I feel like both these albums are diverse. However, the self-titled is diverse in a more naive way, in a better way, I think. I enjoy it more because it is in an innocent, naive way of just, we need to express this stuff, and it is going to sound diverse, and part of it was just needing to have enough songs, possibly 2. That's why maybe getting Tattered and Torn on there, because I don't think that song changed that much from Make, Feed, Kill, Repeat, but I could be wrong. I just don't recall. Yeah, Iowa is a strong freaking album. Again, they came out of the gate, people equal shit. Strong statement as a song. Not, in the title or the words or lyrically, but it is just this. Yeah, they're like, hey, we're here, and we're not taking shit from anybody. And again, that's reflected, lyrically as well. But again, this album still has a lot of pain, a lot of songs that express that well. It's just that it is more structured and has a more accessible diversity. There is diverse stuff going on here. But even some of those more nu metal songs or whatever, again, we've got more cleans going on. And we've got like the different type of anthemic ones, like My Flag, Left Behind, The Shape, which sound like the singles, like Wait and Bleed in a way. A lot of amazing writing here still. The imagery that Corey and others contribute to the lyrics are really moving. It's always so hard for me to wrap things up. It's not always that hard, but it's hard today, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm leaving off on Iowa rather than leaving off on the self-titled. Again, super strong album, very strong. Again, I feel like this does encapsulate what Slipknot's attitude and theme and whatever is. Things evolve, though, right? The way that we express those things evolve, and maybe the things we're expressing evolve too, which is, I think, a perfect segue to me wrapping this up. And next time, I'm going to be talking about Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, and All Hope Is Gone. 2 albums that I enjoy, that again, I feel like there's reasons why they're paired up, and also there's some evolution there too. Slipknot is a band that I love. I really do. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this. When I did this thing with Metallica, like I said, I learned a lot from it. It didn't go very well. I tried to do it all in one video, and I really enjoy Metallica. I don't love them, as I can't say that with the same strength and conviction I can with Slipknot. Another reason that I want to do these evolutions, though, I guess is because I see in the long scope of things, when you've got enough albums, where things do change and how I feel about those changes, and that's what I'm talking about. With that, we will see you on another time.